In the tumultuous spring of 1945, as the formidable rumble of American armor echoed through the ancient streets of Heidelberg, a profound and pervasive dread gripped the civilian populace.
Decades of relentless Nazi propaganda, meticulously crafted to demonize Allied forces, had instilled a chilling certainty that victorious armies would unleash a torrent of retribution, particularly upon German women. This wasn't merely abstract fear. Historical precedents from other war zones tragically often lent credence to such anxieties. The question looming over these vanquished cities wasn't if atrocities would occur,
but when and to what extent.
For the women of Heidelberg, many of whom had lost husbands, fathers, and sons to the Eastern Front or the grim realities of war, this apprehension was acutely personal. Gathered in cramped apartments, they braced themselves, not just for the immediate chaos of occupation, but for the darker implications of quartering a euphemism loaded with centuries of tragic history for conquered women. They understood that propaganda had painted a horrific picture of their fate, one of systemic exploitation and violence. But how accurate were these grim predictions? And could an occupying force truly defy the brutal norms of warfare? This video will delve into an extraordinary, often overlooked, chapter of the American occupation of Heidelberg, examining first-hand accounts that challenge our understanding of post-war dynamics and human dignity amidst profound adversity. If you find historical narratives that defy expectations compelling, please take a moment to like this video, share your initial thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to ensure you don't miss our deep dives into forgotten histories. Now, let's journey back to 1945 and witness a story that began not with conquest, but with a surprising request. A sharp, authoritative rap on the apartment door instantly froze every woman in stark stillness. Through the thin wooden barrier, an accented yet impeccably clear German voice announced, "Ladies, this is Sergeant Thompson of the United States Army. Please open the door. We must conduct a security check." Greta's hands trembled as she gravitated toward the entrance. This was at the very juncture they had most profoundly dreaded. Behind her, the other women clustered together, taut with fear, resembling a startled flock. She unlatched the door to find 3 American soldiers, their uniforms immaculately clean and pressed. The sergeant, a tall, lean man, whose eyes held a surprising kindness, promptly and respectfully removed his helmet. "Madam, my sincerest apologies for the intrusion. We are conducting a search for German military personnel. May we have your permission to enter?" The sheer civility in his tone utterly disarmed Greta. She had steeled herself for belligerence, for coercion, for immediate aggression. Instead, this American soldier was courteously requesting entry, speaking with formality, addressing her with an unanticipated degree of individual respect. Of course, she managed to utter, her voice barely audible. The 3 soldiers entered circumspectly, their weapons held in a low, non-threatening posture. Greta noted their deliberate avoidance of direct eye contact with the women, meticulously preserving a professional distance as they traversed the confined rooms. "Are there any German military personnel within this building?" Sergeant Thompson inquired. "No," Greta responded truthfully. "Only women and children. Any weapons, military equipment? Nothing." The search, though comprehensive, was executed with a distinct air of respect. The soldiers inspected closets and beneath beds, yet scrupulously refrained from unnecessary contact with personal effects, and under no circumstances did they physically touch any of the women. As they readied to depart, Sergeant Thompson paused at the threshold. "Madame, for your security, I advise you to remain indoors for the forthcoming days, while we establish order. The transitional phase may involve some disorientation." "What? How do you intend to dispose of us?" Greta questioned, her voice barely a whisper. The American appeared genuinely confounded by her query. "Dispose of you? We harbor no such intention, madam. You are civilians. Our mandate is to establish a military government and reinstate essential services. Nothing further." Following the soldier's departure, a profound silence enveloped the apartment. The women exchanged bewildered glances, their countenances revealing a blend of confusion and nascent hope. "They didn't even look at us," Anna murmured, astonishment threading her voice. Nevertheless, Greta remained acutely cautious. This could yet prove an elaborate deception, a calculated stratagem to induce a false sense of security. The authentic trial, she understood, would commence in the ensuing days. 3 days after the American arrival, Greta, driven by extreme necessity, ventured outside for the first time. Their scant food provisions were almost depleted, and the women in her building urgently required an understanding of what life under occupation would demand for their subsistence. To her astonishment, Heidelberg had transformed, yet notably remained intact, not destroyed. American soldiers expertly and professionally managed traffic at key intersections. Most remarkably, German civilians navigated the streets. Some were even seen transacting with the occupying forces. "Excuse me, madam," an American voice addressed her from behind. Greta turned to face a young soldier, his uniform pristine, his bearing respectful. Every primal instinct urged her to flee, yet she forced herself to maintain composure. "Yes," she responded warily. "In English, are you seeking the food distribution center? It's 2 blocks in that direction." He indicated toward the town square. "They are providing rations to all civilians, entirely free of charge." Greta regarded him, incredulous. "Rations for German civilians?" The soldier offered a slight smile. "Yes, madam. It is army policy. We supply food for all inhabitants in occupied territories. We cannot permit anyone to starve. That would only engender further complications." Continuing her walk toward the distribution center, Greta witnessed a succession of events that fundamentally challenged all her preconceived notions. American soldiers were observed assisting elderly German civilians, guiding disoriented children to their homes, and even aiding in the repair of damaged structures. At the distribution center itself, she encountered what could only be characterized as meticulously organized chaos. American military personnel supervised German volunteers, who were effectively dispensing provisions to extensive queues of civilians. The rations, though fundamental, were ample. Bread, canned meat, coffee, and even modest bars of chocolate for the children. Next, the American sergeant overseeing the distribution commanded. Upon reaching the front of the line, Greta provided her name and address to a German clerk, while the American sergeant Hasid Wisley recorded the particulars on his clipboard. The procedure was impersonal, yet strikingly efficient. "How many in your household?" the sergeant inquired in hesitant German. 7 women, Greta responded, ranging in age from 19 to 41. The sergeant calculated the portions and presented her with a robust canvas bag overflowing with provisions. "These should sustain you for 1 week. Return next Tuesday for your next allotment." As Greta turned to depart, a fragment of conversation between 2 American soldiers reached her, causing her to halt abruptly. "Sergeant, some of the men are inquiring." "Well, regarding the local women." The sergeant's countenance instantly hardened. "And what was your directive to them?" "Corporal." "Sergeant, I informed them that fraternization with local nationals is rigorously prohibited." "But some are asserting." "No one is asserting anything," the sergeant interjected with unyielding firmness. "General Eisenhower's directives are unequivocally explicit. Any soldier discovered fraternizing with German civilians will face a general court-martial. Without exception, while they may be a defeated enemy, they remain human beings deserving of fundamental dignity." "Yes, Sergeant. I will ensure that mandate is unequivocally conveyed." "You absolutely ensure it's conveyed." "Our mission here is to establish order and democracy, not to behave as conquering barbarians. We are Americans, not Nazis." Greta hastened away, her mind awash in a profound vortex of conflicting reflections. The Americans, she now comprehended, operated under explicit directives prohibiting fraternization with German women, not from a stance of superiority or contempt, but to uphold rigorous military discipline and exemplary conduct. Upon her return to the apartment building, she found the other women anxiously awaiting her account. "What did you ascertain?" Anna promptly urged. Greta distributed the acquired rations, simultaneously narrating her extraordinary encounter. "They are organized and professional. They are furnishing food to German civilians and preserving order. And she paused, grappling to articulate the seemingly improbable truth. They are respecting us. But surely they will conscript women for services? Mary queried, her voice heavy with apprehension. No. Greta rejoined with conviction. I distinctly overheard an American sergeant explicitly prohibiting fraternization. It contravenes their military directives. The women exchanged glances, their initial confusion gradually yielding to a nascent glimmer of hope. Then what precisely do they desire from us? Anna pressed, still bewildered. Greta recalled the American sergeant's pronouncements regarding the establishment of order and democracy. I believe, she articulated slowly, contemplatively, they intend for us to reintegrate into a civil society. They aim to reconstruct Germany, not merely to perpetuate its destruction. Yet, even as she voiced this, Greta retained a critical degree of circumspection. These were still nascent stages, and wartime men frequently exhibited altered behaviors once the initial exhilaration of conquest had dissipated. Just 1 week into the American occupation of Heidelberg, Greta received an assignment to the newly established Civil Administration Office, where she served as a translator for American officials, engaging with German civilians. In this role, she gained insight into discussions that profoundly challenged her every preconception of a conquering army's customary behavior. Madame, we must address the housing situation, Lieutenant Bradley, a young officer from Ohio who spoke meticulous, accurate German, declared, too many families are confined to damaged structures. We need to locate superior accommodations. Greta translated for Frau Weber, an elderly widow whose residence had been partially ruined by bombings. The woman's response was guarded and hesitant. She inquires what you expect in return. Greta conveyed to the lieutenant, she states there is no such thing as a free lunch. Lieutenant Bradley appeared genuinely bewildered. Returns. We seek nothing. It is our imperative to uphold civilian welfare in occupied territories. We are not conducting a commercial enterprise. Over the ensuing days, Greta observed numerous comparable interactions. American soldiers actively participated in repairing compromised water systems, dispensed crucial medical provisions, and even established educational facilities for German children. Most notably, they undertook all these initiatives without soliciting the quid pro quo that German women had been tragically conditioned to anticipate. One afternoon, Corporal Johnson, an amiable soldier from Alabama, approached Greta's translation desk with discernible embarrassment. Miss Müller, I need to pose a question, and I trust you won't find it objectionable. Greta instinctively tensed, steeling herself for the anticipated, dreaded overture. Of course, she replied circumspectly. My compatriot requested my assistance in locating his German relatives, the Zimmermann family. They resided in Heidelberg prior to the war. Would it be appropriate for me to aid him in their discovery? I certainly have no desire to create any disruption or discomfort. Greta regarded him, astonishment visibly clouding her expression. You intend to assist German civilians in locating their families? Indeed, madam, if permissible. My compatriot Heinrich emigrated to the United States in 1938. Profound concern for his cousins. The authentic solicitude in Corporal Johnson's voice was unmistakable. This American soldier was conveying genuine concern for a German family, perceiving them as fellow human beings, not simply as exploitable adversaries. I can consult the civil registry on your behalf, Greta offered, her initial shock receding into quiet determination. Thank you, madam. Heinrich will be profoundly grateful. That evening, Greta recounted these transformative experiences to the women in her building, though their responses were markedly diverse. They are executing a protracted strategy, Anna proposed with profound suspicion. Initially, they cultivate our trust. Subsequently, they will unveil their true requisitions. But Anna, Mary countered, her tone imbued with pragmatic reasoning. It has been 2 weeks. Had they intended to impose anything upon us, why delay? Greta, too, had contemplated this identical question. I have observed them assiduously, she affirmed. Their conduct remains consistent, regardless of whether they perceive our presence. This is not a charade. Then what is it? Anna pressed. I believe, Greta responded deliberately, her voice resonating with newfound conviction. They genuinely adhere to their pronouncements regarding the democratic reconstruction of Germany. They seek for us to become allies, not merely subjugated victims. The subsequent morning, Greta's evolving hypothesis received dramatic corroboration. Sergeant Thompson arrived at their apartment building bearing unforeseen intelligence. Ladies, we are establishing a civilian committee to facilitate reconstruction planning. We require German representatives to convey community requirements to the military government. You desire German civilians to participate in governance? Greta inquired, astonishment reverberating in her voice. Indeed, he responded. This is your nation. We are here temporarily to aid in establishing stable, democratic institutions. Ultimately, you will once again govern yourselves. Anna, emboldened by the sergeant's statements, advanced. Sergeant, why have your soldiers... why have they not conducted themselves in the manner typical of a conquering army? Sergeant Thompson's expression became grave, his gaze resolute. Madam, we did not arrive here to subjugate Germany. We came to vanquish Nazism and to facilitate the emergence of a better Germany. There exists a profound distinction. But we were your adversary, Anna persisted, echoing years of ingrained perspective. No, madam, he corrected her gently but with conviction. The Nazis were our enemy. You are German civilians, and you merit the opportunity to reconstruct your lives in peace. Subsequent to the sergeant's departure, the women lapsed into a stunned silence. Everything they had been led to believe concerning American atrocities had, through their lived experience, been unequivocally disproven. Instead, they were observing something truly unparalleled. A respectful occupation, assiduously centered on reconstruction rather than punitive retribution. What manner of army is this? Anna murmured, her voice steeped in profound disbelief. Greta had no immediate reply, but she was beginning to comprehend that they were witnessing a historical anomaly of victorious power that intentionally prioritized human dignity above military subjugation. The crucial question now was whether this exceptional conduct would endure as the occupation progressed. Approximately 1 month into the occupation of Heidelberg, a profoundly significant incident transpired. An American soldier was arrested in an adjacent district for attempting to sexually assault a German woman. The American command's immediate and resolute response astonished every German civilian who observed it. All personnel, assemble in the courtyard. Instantly, Major Harrison, the district commander, bellowed, his voice resonating through Heidelberg's streets. From the civil administration office, Greta observed over 200 American soldiers snap into impeccable military formation. Major Harrison's countenance was etched with fury as he addressed the troops. Yesterday, Corporal Collins dishonored this uniform and everything we embody. The major roared, his voice projecting across the entire courtyard. He attempted to sexually assault a German civilian. A wave of murmuring swept through the assembled soldiers, not of affirmation, but of discernible disgust and shame. Corporal Collins has been apprehended and will face a general court. Should he be convicted, he will endure years in military prison and receive a dishonorable discharge. But that is insufficient. Major Harrison paused, allowing his words to settle with chilling gravity. Every man present must grasp one truth. We are not barbarians. We are not Nazis. We are American soldiers. We uphold the finest traditions of military service. Any individual unable to control themselves has no place in this army. Lieutenant Bradley then stepped forward. Sir, regarding the victim, I personally extended my apologies to her and her family, Major Harrison affirmed. The Army is furnishing comprehensive medical care and reparations. Moreover, we have deployed augmented security personnel to that particular vicinity. The Major's countenance hardened further. Let me state with unequivocal clarity, any soldier who observes misconduct and neglects to report it will face charges as an accessory. As the formation dispersed, Greta inadvertently intercepted conversations among American soldiers, dialogues that proved as illuminating of their character as their commander's severe admonition. Collins was always a deviant. One sergeant grumbled to his comrade. Should have been identified and removed during training. He tarnished our collective image. Another responded grimly. We are endeavoring to cultivate trust with these individuals, and an imbecile like him obliterates months of advancement. Do you believe German women will still collaborate with us? The third soldier inquired anxiously. If you were in their position, would you? We must demonstrate our superiority to one corrupt individual. That very afternoon, a further truly unprecedented event transpired. Sergeant Thompson arrived at Greta's apartment building, this time accompanied by the assaulted woman herself, Ingrid Müller, the baker's daughter from an adjacent district. Miss Müller, Sergeant Thompson formally declared, Ingrid desires to address the other German women regarding the incident. Ingrid, despite evident trauma, was resolute in her determination to recount her experience. That American soldier attacked me, she commenced, her voice trembling yet unwavering. But what transpired subsequently, I would never have conceived it. What do you imply? Anna gently probed. Other American soldiers heard my cries and instantly intervened, restraining him. They exhibited no hesitation. They shielded me from one of their own. Subsequently, their commander personally visited my residence to offer his apologies. Greta translated for Sergeant Thompson, who nodded gravely. Madame, I wish for you and all German civilians to comprehend. Colin's actions constituted a crime, and they are unequivocally contrary to Army policy. We approach such incidents with the most profound seriousness. But why? Mary inquired through Greta's translation, her voice imbued with profound disbelief. We are your vanquished adversary. Why would you concern yourselves with safeguarding German women? Sergeant Thompson's reply, articulated with quiet intensity, would indelibly imprint itself upon Greta for the remainder of her life. Miss, we did not wage this war to emulate the very people we vanquished. We fought to affirm that democracy and human dignity are principles worthy of defense. If we commence behaving as barbarians, then what, precisely, was the essence of our victory? Subsequent to their departure, the women immediately convened to deliberate upon the extraordinary events they had witnessed. A victorious army had not only penalized one of its own soldiers for assaulting a German woman, but it also tendered a public apology, furnished medical care and compensation, and deployed enhanced protection for the victim's community. I have never encountered such an occurrence, Anna confessed, her voice muted with disbelief. Conventionally, armies safeguard their own personnel, not civilian adversaries. They no longer regard us as enemies, Greta apprehended, a profound realization taking hold. They view us as individuals requiring aid to reconstruct Germany. But can we genuinely trust them? Mary interjected, her skepticism persisting. A singular positive action does not negate the potential for future complications. Greta recollected Major Harrison's public address, the soldiers' authentic mortification at their comrades' conduct, and Sergeant Thompson's articulate elucidation of the American military's rigorous discipline. I contend, she articulated cautiously, formulating a nascent theory. We are confronting an army that fears embodying the very monsters they contended against more than they fear compromising military efficacy. This represents an absolute novelty in modern warfare. The paramount question lingered. Would this unparalleled military discipline persist as the occupation deepened? 3 months into the American occupation of Heidelberg, Greta confronted her most significant test of trust when Lieutenant Bradley presented her with an unconventional request, one poised to either affirm or irrevocably shatter her developing confidence in American military behavior. Miss Müller, we necessitate your assistance with a sensitive matter, Bradley announced during a morning briefing. There are indications of German women offering services to American soldiers in exchange for some rations or protection. Greta's heart plummeted. This was precisely her apprehension. The seemingly unavoidable corruption inherent in military occupation, the somber juncture where destitution converged with opportunity. What would you have me do? She inquired circumspectly. We require you to engage with these women and clarify that such arrangements pose risks for all parties involved. The soldiers will face a court-martial, and the women risk grave exploitation by unethical individuals. You expect me to dissuade German women from exchanging services for survival? Greta's direct question permeated the atmosphere. Lieutenant, Bradley's expression became earnest. Miss Müller, our objective is to assist these women in securing legitimate avenues of livelihood. We are instituting work programs, laundry services, translation positions, administrative support. No German civilian should ever feel coerced into compromising their dignity for sustenance or security. That afternoon, Greta found herself in an unexpectedly intricate situation. Charged with convening with 5 German women reportedly tendering sexual services to American soldiers. What she was on the verge of uncovering, however, would fundamentally reevaluate her presupposition regarding both the women's incentives and the soldiers' reactions. They persistently decline our offers, lamented Lisa Hoffman, a desperate mother of 2 whose husband had perished in Russia. We present our propositions, and they merely withdraw or deliver a discourse on self-respect. What do you signify? They refuse. Greta inquired, genuinely baffled. Yesterday, I approached Corporal Williams, that young soldier, Lisa recounted. I unequivocally conveyed what I was prepared to do for additional milk for my children. He appeared utterly stunned, yet still provided the milk without soliciting anything in return. Petra Schmidt, another woman, affirmed this with a nod. It is consistent across the board. They will not accept what we tender, yet they still aid us. It is profoundly perplexing. Greta began to comprehend the astonishing magnitude of the unfolding reality. German women, forged and conditioned by years of warfare and profound anguish, had tragically grown accustomed to exploitation. They were endeavoring to survive through what they perceived as conventional methods, only to encounter American soldiers explicitly instructed and morally obligated to decline such propositions. Therefore, you have not been coerced or exploited, Greta queried, seeking unequivocal clarification. Quite the contrary. Lisa responded, a tone of bewildered frustration in her voice. We have been attempting to exploit them, but they consistently refuse. Instead, they invariably redirect us toward legitimate work programs and underscore the imperative of preserving our dignity.
That evening,
Greta presented her exceptional findings to Lieutenant Bradley, who listened with discernible relief. So, the fundamental issue isn't soldiers exploiting vulnerable women, but rather vulnerable women attempting to leverage the only currency they perceive themselves to possess. Precisely, Greta affirmed, and your soldiers have steadfastly declined, assiduously striving to present legitimate alternatives. Lieutenant Bradley massaged his temples, exhaling a sigh. This situation is considerably more intricate than I had foreseen. How do we effectively aid women who have been systematically indoctrinated to believe their sole worth, their only viable option lies in surrendering their dignity for survival? By perpetually demonstrating their other, inherent value, Greta proposed with conviction. The work programs you referenced render them genuinely comprehensive. Furnish these women with pathways to attain respect and resources through their own abilities and labor. Bradley contemplated her counsel. Do you genuinely believe that will prove effective, Lieutenant? For 5 years, he mused, these women have subsisted within a societal framework that conveyed their sole value as mothers of soldiers, or as diversions for men. It will undeniably require time to convince them that they possess equivalent worth as individuals endowed with talent and fundamental rights. In the forthcoming week, the American administration initiated an expanded civilian employment program of unparalleled breadth. German women were engaged as translators, clerical personnel, educators, and even superintendents for reconstruction endeavors. Critically, they received equitable remuneration and were treated with the deference accorded to professionals. Greta personally observed Lisa Hoffman's striking metamorphosis, evolving within weeks from a desperate petitioner to a self-assured supervisor of a military laundry operation. I never conceived that Americans would regard German women as equal individuals, Lisa divulged to Greta. Even men in our own nation frequently neglected to do so. They are not merely treating us as equals, Greta rejoined, a profound realization crystallizing within her. They are aiding us in recalling that we have perpetually been worthy of respect. As summer enveloped at Heidelberg, something genuinely unprecedented began to materialize. An occupying army was systematically dismantling the cultural and economic frameworks that had objectified women, substituting them with concrete opportunities for dignity and self-sufficiency. Yet, Greta contemplated, could this extraordinary endeavor and respectful occupation truly withstand the inevitable tribulations ahead? As Germany grappled with the arduous task of reconstituting its identity from the vestiges of defeat, 6 months into the American occupation of Heidelberg, Greta stood within the newly refurbished Heidelberg town hall, witnessing an event she had once deemed utterly inconceivable. German women were actively participating in the city's inaugural democratic elections since the pre-Nazi era, while American soldiers maintained vigilant guard, meticulously safeguarding their franchise. Miss Muller, Major Harrison called, approaching her with a countenance illuminated by palpable satisfaction. I wished personally to express my gratitude for your indispensable work in bridging our communities. Greta surveyed the vibrant polling station, observing German civilians, women conspicuously among them, exercising their franchise for local representatives. American soldiers preserved a respectful perimeter, intervening solely when indispensable to ensure equity and preclude any intimation of coercion. Major, I must pose a query that has confounded me for months, Greta commenced, turning her gaze to him. Why has your army's conduct diverged so dramatically from what we, as Germans, had foreseen? Major Harrison pondered her question with profound earnestness. Miss Müller, he articulated, we assimilated a crucial lesson from the First World War. Subjugating a defeated enemy invariably engenders future discord. This time, we opted for an alternative trajectory, one predicated on aiding former adversaries in their transformation into democratic allies. At that precise moment, Lisa Hoffmann approached, radiant in the pristine uniform of her new role as a supervisor of civil services. Greta, the tabulation of votes is nearing completion. It appears Frau Weber will be our first elected mayor since 1933. Greta smiled, reflecting upon the profound transformations she had observed daily. Women who had prepared themselves for brutal subjugation had, within a span of months, blossomed into confident community leaders, their dignity reestablished, their invaluable contributions recognized. One final point, Major Harrison appended, drawing her focus. Next month, the preponderance of our combat troops will be reallocated to other assignments. Civil administration will transition to German authority significantly sooner than initially projected. Why? Greta inquired, surprised. Because you're convinced that you no longer necessitate our presence to sustain order and democratic governance, he clarified. The occupation has attained its objectives and flourished with far greater expediency than anyone could have foreseen. That evening Greta convened with the women in her apartment, billing the very individuals who, merely 6 months prior, had recoiled in terror, steeling themselves for the direst outcomes from their Anna, you are presently instructing at the German-American Friendship School, Greta noted. Mary, you are overseeing the district medical clinic. Petra, you are undergoing training to become a civil administrator, and you are on the cusp of becoming Heidelberg's liaison to the nascent German federal government. Anna countered with a smile. None of us ever conceived we would reconstruct our lives with the assistance of American soldiers. They honored their promise, Mary stated, a trace of lingering astonishment in her voice. They proclaimed their intent to establish democracy, not to exploit us, and they genuinely aligned their rhetoric with their actions. Beyond that, Greta thoughtfully appended, they revealed to us a self-worth greater than we had perceived. After years of being informed our sole purpose was to serve others, they facilitated our remembrance that we could serve ourselves and our community. As this spring, 1946 unfurled, the improbable had undeniably manifested into reality. An occupying army had unequivocally chosen restoration above exploitation, dignity above domination, an authentic partnership above mere conquest. The women of Heidelberg would forever cherish the memory of the soldiers who, even amidst the profound throes of their nation's defeat, had afforded them recognition as worthy and esteemed individuals. 1 year subsequent to the initial American arrival in Heidelberg, Greta stood at the railway station, observing the departure of the 45th Infantry Division. These once-dreaded conquerors were now bidding farewell to German friends and collaborators, their objective of democratic reconstruction substantially fulfilled. Sergeant Thompson approached Greta, bearing a small, meticulously wrapped package. Miss Muller, this originates from my wife in Kansas. She desired for you to possess it. Greta unfastened the gift to reveal a exquisitely hand-embroidered handkerchief and a precisely penned letter in English. Dear Greta, my husband has extensively written about your courage and benevolence. You assisted him in comprehending that erstwhile adversaries can indeed forge bonds of friendship. Thank you for exemplifying the finest qualities of the German people during such an immensely challenging period. Sergeant Greta articulated, her voice imbued with profound emotion. I am at a loss as to how to adequately thank you and your men for your comprehensive contributions to our community. Madame, your gratitude is unnecessary, Sergeant Thompson responded, his gaze sincere. You and the other women of Heidelberg imparted to us something equally indispensable. That even in the aftermath of conflict, treating individuals with dignity cultivates an outcome far superior to mere victory. It fosters enduring peace. Around them, American soldiers exchanged farewells with the German civilians, alongside whom they had collaborated for months. Children who had initially shied away from the foreign soldiers now embraced them without reserve. Women who had once braced for brutal treatment were now shaking hands with men who had evolved into trusted counterparts. Lieutenant Bradley joined their discourse, his expression mirroring the bittersweet triumph of the military endeavor. Miss Muller, our relief contingents will arrive next week, but their function will primarily involve managing administrative transition. The challenging task of reconstruction is, to all intents and purposes, concluded. What aspect of your tenure here left the most profound impression? Greta inquired. Bradley offered a smile. Americans and Germans, it turns out, are not so dissimilar. We all aspire to security for our families, fulfilling employment, and the prospect of living with dignity. The political divisions that separated us were transient. The humanity that binds us is everlasting. As the train's whistle sharply rent the air, Greta reflected upon the profound transformations she had both observed and undergone. Women, once tragically categorized as spoils of war, were now empowered partners in the democratic reconstruction. An occupying army had demonstrably chosen elevation over subjugation, restoration over demolition. Greta, Lise Hofmann now, the mayor of Heidelberg, hurried onto the platform, her voice resounding. The city council has voted. We are designating the new community center the German-American Friendship Hall in homage to the soldiers who aided us in rebuilding our lives. Sergeant Thompson shook his head in profound astonishment. Just a year ago, we were adversaries exchanging fire. Today, you are christening structures. In our name? If that does not attest to humanity's capacity for change, then I cannot conceive what possibly could. As the train departed, conveying the American soldiers toward their subsequent assignments, Greta reflected upon the remarkable year she had just experienced. She had been a first-hand observer of an unparalleled chapter in military history, where a victorious power intentionally opted for humanity above subjugation, dignity above exploitation, and authentic collaboration above mere conquest. The women of Heidelberg had come to recognize that not all armies operated identically. Not all soldiers were predatory, and that even in the nadir of defeat, they harbored an intrinsic worth meriting recognition and fervent protection by honorable individuals. Crucially, they ascertained that their inherent strength and dignity had never truly vanished. It had simply awaited the propitious moment to resurface. America's endeavor in respectful occupation had vastly surpassed all expectations, conclusively demonstrating that when afforded fundamental humanity, erstwhile adversaries could indeed forge resilient alliances. Amidst the desolation of Nazi Germany, American soldiers had assiduously cultivated the seeds of democracy and dignity, seeds destined to blossom, in time, into decades of profound amity between former foes.